What's happening, property people? Today in this episode, I've found a neighborhood retail center in North Richmond in Sydney, which looks like a great deal, but we need to go and inspect the property. We've got to come back and run the numbers to figure out if it's a good deal or not and what we'd be willing to pay for it. And I'm going to show you exactly how to run the numbers on a commercial property like a pro so you can do it too. So let's jump in the car and get her done. Alright, so I've just rocked up at the building, at the property, and it's on a really good main road. It's pretty quiet today. It's a Sunday afternoon, but there's a lot of cars going past, so it's quite good. I haven't got the IM from the agent yet, so I'm not exactly sure which tenancies are what. There are supposed to be 7 tenancies on this property. It's bringing in, I think on the listing it said 131,000, but it looks like there's good street frontage here for a real estate agent, which is pretty good. It's got a laundromat, an op shop, a bottle shop, and a hair salon. So there must be some residential tenants up there. There definitely must be something like that, because I'm only counting 5 tenants and there's 7, so there must be 2 residential properties up in that top part over here. Let's have a look to see. Op shop's not such a good tenant to have. They're not going to be making a lot of money, so that might be a problem. But there's a lot of, we're right near, I don't know if you can see that, North Richmond Village. There's a Coles there, that's quite good. Medical centre, that's not bad either. Oh, okay, the hairdresser over here, there's a hairdresser here. They must have access from this side. So, there's Aldi. Look, you can see an Aldi sign. That's a good sign. Being close to Aldi is a definite plus. I mean, this is a very busy area. You can see there's all retail shops back here as well, which is quite interesting. I did notice that there actually is a lot of retail shops around this area, which is not good. So the property looks pretty clean. It's definitely been reasonably taken care of. I mean, there's no real big upgrades that need to be done. I'm not exactly sure what this building is here, or that's part of the property. I'm gonna have to double check on that. I have no idea what that is or what goes on in that particular property. But it looks like it was part of the parcel at some point, or it still is, I'm not sure. It might be some community center or something, but like, it's Sunday afternoon and it's pretty busy here. It's pretty crazy. And I've just seen, have a look at this up here. Hawkesbury self-storage. Yes, that's the good stuff right there. I might have a look at that, see if we can track down that property as well while we're here. But with this property, this one that I'm looking at just here, so tenancy wise, the real estate agent is quite good. They're going to be making a lot of money, or a decent amount of money with good margins, so they're going to be a good tenant. The bottle shop, that's actually a really good tenant, not because they have huge margins, but they always have customers. So with a bottle shop, you have people coming and buying alcohol in celebration. They're celebrating things, they drink alcohol. And also when they're depressed, when they're sad, they also come and drink alcohol as well. So you always have customers. You never not have customers as a bottle shop. So, you know, you're making money in good times and bad times, which is good. The hairdresser over there, just over here, hairdressers are good because they have a very, very tight customer base around their property, so they don't move very often. So usually a hairdresser, they might have a customer base of a 10-kilometer radius around the property. So it means they don't want to up and move and go to a different property in future, because then they'd have to get a whole new customer base, or the whole customer base would have to move, and not a lot of them would move with them unless they're really good or they're really specialized in the type of hair that they cut. But this property is pretty clean. I mean, it has pretty nice new lines on the driveway. You don't need to do too much. It'll be interesting to see what they actually, the price is, because I don't have the IM for this property yet. You can see up there on the laundromat that there's lots of exhaust fans. Laundromats, they can be a little bit troublesome. Insurance-wise, insurance don't like laundromats because they have a higher likelihood of causing a fire because of the lint factor or something like that. And also they use a lot of water. So hopefully they have net leases where all the water and all the charges are going to the tenants. But apart from that, it's pretty clean. In the listing, they also said that the tenants are on a month-to-month lease. So there might be some chance to be able to increase the rents, firm up the leases, increase the rents. So if the tenants are on a month-to-month leases, we should be able to get the property at a bit of a discount. So that means we can come in, firm up the leases, and then potentially increase the rents as well. So you can have a little value add there just by making it an overall better offering. Oh, it looks like there could be an accountant. It says there's an accountants and business advisors. So that might be one of the other tenants. Maybe they're upstairs. Maybe they're upstairs up there. There might not be a residential tenant. So we'd have to wait and see. It looks like it's a newer development, maybe in the last 10, 15 years. The problem is, as I said before, is that there's a shirtload of retail around here. I'm just going to walk up the road and we'll see, and I'll show you how much retail I saw on the way in. So if there's a lot of retail around, it means there's a lot of supply for tenants, potential tenants, to go elsewhere and stay in the same market. So you don't have as sticky a tenants when there's lots of supply. If this was in a more tightly held residential area with no other retail around, it would be much more interesting. All right, here we go. So we've got North Richmond Village, Coles. Obviously this is going to be a better, more desirable location for retailers, because this is where all the foot traffic is. With retail, you pay for the foot traffic. So on that property, you're not going to have as much foot traffic as this property, because Coles brings you to this property. Look at all the cars here. It's Sunday afternoon and the car park is reasonably full. There's lots of people doing shopping, buying things. There's a gym up there, just up there. So this is definitely going to be a higher priced rate per square meter retail area, and this is going to be much more desirable because this also has road frontage. People can see you from the road, they drive by, and you can have really good frontage from the road. But the other one, you're kind of tucked away a little bit, which is not as desirable. So the rate per square meter that you would charge someone for being in that property, the one we came here to look at, would be a lot lower because you don't have this visibility, you don't have the roadside frontage. I wonder if this property is all in on one title. If it was, this would be a really awesome property. This would be a sick property to buy, because you could really add some significant value to this if this is all in one line. Like, there'd at least be 20 to 30 shops here, easy. I'm not even sure how many shops are inside the center, but you know, you've got Coles as well. You know, you've got the cafes, you've got Subway, got a newspaper stand, Domino's, kebabs, all the good stuff really. And then you've got all these little nooks and crannies where you go in and you've got these little shops inside. Tobacconist, and there's also a medical center here as well. The property that we came to look at would be much more interesting if there was less retail options around for the tenants to go, and it was in a more tightly residential area. This is definitely the best spot, just around here, this spot. And through there you go into Coles. There's even more shops through there. There's probably like 50 shops through here. So I'm gonna have to go home, wait for the agent to send me the IM. Then I can do the homework on the due diligence on the numbers, crunch the numbers, and figure out exactly what I would be willing to pay for this asset and what the asking price is. The asking price will be way too high, guaranteed. I wonder what cap rate they're gonna wanna sell this at, because I reckon it's gonna start with a 5 easily, whereas I'd be wanting this to start with a 6, maybe a 6.5, for it to make sense.
All right, so this is the property listing at 41 Bell's Line of Road. Bell's Line of Road. It's a weird one. It's in North Richmond anyway. So these are the pictures, and that's where we just were. So it looks pretty clean from up here. Obviously, yeah, you can see all of the retail around, that big retail mall there. And then we were also over here in this retail center as well, and that's where Aldi is. So it actually is quite a good spot for good walking traffic for retail, but there just seems to be a lot of supply. So I did some research on the area for retail properties, and there was about 12 potential vacancies, or 12 options of retail offices and also offices that could be used as retail potentially, or a retail that could be used as an office. Either one, they kind of go hand in hand. So there were 12 options, not too bad, but it's still not the tightest market that I would like. But these are the couple of pictures they've got on the website. And so the land area is 1,174 square meters with a net lettable area of 478 square meters. That's what the tenants are paying for. You've got to also make sure you really look at the wording that the agent uses, because that will tell you exactly if how you need to calculate these things. Because in here he says generating 131,200 per annum. Now he didn't say net, he didn't say gross, he just said generating. So that means that this is most likely a gross figure, and we need to take the outgoings out of this to get to the true value of the property. So the words that they use in the listings are very, very important, because you can mistakenly say, oh, that's what it's returning, and then do your numbers off that, but you would be wildly incorrect, because this is a gross figure and not a net figure, and commercial property is valued based on the net income it produces, not the gross income it produces. This is the info we've got so far, from the listing, and then the agent has also now sent me some information or more information on the property, which we need to go through as well. This is the info from the agent. So it says, "Good afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for your interest in subject property. Please find attached the brochure plans for your review. Below is a brief summary of the opportunity." So I did do some more digging on this property, and it has been listed for 120 days. So it's a bit of a stale listing. That leads me to believe that the asking price is way above where people would be willing to pay for it, as I alluded to, or as I thought it might be in the video or in the walkthrough. So, and I believe that the current owner has owned it for about 18 years. So this is probably why that it's probably been a bit mismanaged, as in the property looked quite clean. It looked like they prepared it for sale, but in terms of like the leases and the financial side of things, it does seem that it's been mismanaged in that way. So the price guide is 3.2 million. Yeah, wow. It's a lot higher than I thought it would be, especially for the revenue that it's producing. So if it's doing 131 gross, and that's not even the net figure, and they want 3.2 million, even if it was doing 131 net, that would be ridiculously low. So let's just pretend they're doing 131 net divided by 3.2 million. Even that would be a 4% return. Oh my gosh, that's sharper than Freddy Krueger's claws after he gets a fresh manicure. Holy Jesus. So, okay. So there's no way. This is why it's been on the market for 120 days. There's no way anyone's paying a 4 cap for this thing, and it's probably going to be a 3.5 cap by the time we take out all the real expenses for this property. So we can see here there seems to be they've listed it 7 units, but I can see here he has unit 8. So there must be a total of 8 units in total. And in unit 1 is the real estate agent. They're doing $25,080 per annum. Once again, that just says per annum, doesn't say gross, doesn't say net. The lease expired on the 31st of March 2020. Okay, so it's been expired for a long time, 5 years. They've been month to month. And it's currently on a month-to-month basis. It's a net lease with the tenant responsible for 1/7 of the total outgoings in addition to the rent. Okay, so this is a net lease, but it's on a month-to-month basis, and the tenant pays 1/7 of the outgoings. Okay, so that's not too bad. We just need to get those guys on a new lease, and a longer lease as well, maybe a 3 to 5 year lease with options to renew. That's not too bad. They're the best tenant, I would say, in that location, because they should have the highest rate per square meter, because they have the best location, they have the best street frontage, they have the best signage opportunities. These guys are going to be the anchor tenant, I would say. Paul's Liquor is maybe the second best tenant. They have a good location as well, a good spot. They'll have a high rate per square meter as well. They have good walk-by traffic and good road frontage as well. And they've got 3 units. So I thought it was 2. That's right. Yeah, I thought it was 2 shops that were combined, but it's actually 3. So that makes a lot more sense now. They're paying the highest amount because they've got 3 shops. So they're paying $46,200 for this particular one, and they're still in lease. So their lease is expiring on the 14th of April 2026 with no further options to renew. So that's not good. It's a gross lease with the tenant responsible for only utilities, no outgoing contributions. So that tenant is paying absolutely nothing in outgoings or maintenance or anything like that. This is a bad tenancy. We need to firm up and make it a lot more secure, getting them on a long-term lease. I wonder why they wouldn't have negotiated to re-sign something or have a further option or something, or at least try and figure out what they're doing. I guess it's in 2026 in April, so it's not that far away really. It's only 6 months away. So if it was if you're managing this property right, about 6 months out from when the tenants are going to expire on their current lease, you'd want to be asking them, figuring out what they're going to be doing, because this is the time when you have to figure that out. And then if they say, we're shutting down the business or we're moving somewhere, that means you've got 6 months to go and find a new tenant. And it does take a little time with these retail properties to find a new tenant, especially, in that particular area where, as I said, there's a lot of retail options for people. So that's a big one, and they're actually majority of the income that comes in. So $46,000, if that goes, that's a big problem. So we need to secure that tenant. That's the risk here. The biggest risk I can see so far is Paul's Liquor. All right, Unit 5, Avalanche Trading Laundromat. Okay, so this is a laundromat. They're paying $23,749. The lease runs out in the 30th of November 2027, so they've got a couple of years left to run with a 5-year option to renew, so that's good. Net lease, which is good, with the tenant contributing 14.28% of total outgoings in addition to rent. Okay, that's good. It's strange that they've got like a percentage of contributions, and then up here they've got a 1/7 of total outgoings. It makes it very hard to calculate that, but the reason why these guys I'd imagine they've definitely have some contributions to the outgoings is because they'd probably use the most, they'd probably create the most outgoings. So with water, with electricity, which is a utility, these guys are going to have a lot more like bills and stuff to pay because of them being there. So it's a pretty good lease on this one. So it runs out 2027, still got 2 years to run basically, and a 5-year option to renew. So that's not bad. Unit 6 is Charlene Bazina Hair Salon. They're paying $21,730 per annum. Lease expires on the 11th of March 25, so it's expired now with a 2-year option to renew. It's a gross lease, tenant responsible for only utilities. So because this is an old listing, it's 120 days old, this must have been current, or this must have been, I don't know why you would not have like signed her up to the option now and then updated this information. And especially because I only just inquired on this, and we're in November now. So that may say a lot about this listing, why it's not been sold, because it's just a stale listing. Even the agents don't care about updating the information. So, okay, so it looks like she's obviously still operating there. So she's either just rolled onto the month-to-month lease, or she's picked up the option. That'd be a good one to keep, because hair salon is usually a very sticky tenant. So we want to keep that one if we can. Unit 7, Baptist Church Op Shop. They're paying $17,160. No current lease on file, or a formal lease can be prepared for this if required. So there's no current lease on file. They're basically squatting in the property. No legal rights to be there, except for a handshake deal. So yes, we would need a lease. I don't know why you would bring this to market without having some kind of a formal lease. I can understand an expired lease with them month to month, but there's no lease on file at all. So how long have they been there for? Yeah, so the op shop, although it's a church, we're here to make money. It's a business. We need them paying rent. We need them on a good firm lease, and we need to have increases as well. So if they can't handle increases and stuff like that, then unfortunately they're going to have to move on. But by all means, you would definitely be getting a firm lease put up for these guys. It'd most likely, you'd want it to be a minimum of 3 years with options to renew potentially. But I have a feeling that being an op shop, they might not want to sign more than a 12-month lease, which is not as good. not as good for your value add for the bank financing, and also a reval later on as well. So the next one we've got is Unit 8. This is a mezzanine above Unit 6. This is the accountant. Yeah, so the accountant that we found on site as well. It had very, very poor signage for the accountant. I didn't even see the accountant sign until I had a good look. So imagine if you're driving by, you're not going to be able to see this accountant sign. So that might be something that they might want to address. But they're only paying $10,400 per annum. No current lease on file. Again, a formal lease can be prepared if required. Of course, it's required. It's definitely required. We're not, renting things on a handshake deal. So we definitely need a formal lease. I wonder how long. I mean, accountants usually a pretty decent tenant. They once again have a good, especially if it's an older accountant and they're more old school, and the clients that he has like to come in and see him physically, although you don't need to do that now as an accountant. But if he's old school, he might like having the face-to-face touch to it. So his clients would be in a radius around the property as well. So he might be a good tenant as well. Let's have a look through the outgoings. So these estimated outgoings, they look a bit light. And let's really focus on the words that the agent has used here. Estimated annual outgoings. So we know they're not legitimate. So you need to take that with a grain of salt. Once again, you need to really read the words that they're writing, because that could be taken as gospel, as these are the outgoings, and then you put that in your numbers, and then you could pay more for the property than you really should. But this is the words that they've said, estimated. So we need to make sure that these are legitimate. So in your due diligence phase, even before that, you would be asking, can I have the council rates? Can I have the insurance documents? Can I have the water rates? There's no land tax for this property, because I checked before. The land isn't valued over $1,075,000 threshold for New South Wales, so they're not paying any land tax right now. And they must have, this is probably the only asset in that entity, so they don't need to pay any land tax for this particular one. But that's the information we've got so far for this deal. And now we can start running the numbers a little bit and getting a bit more of an understanding of what the actual returns would be, and if this is a deal that we want to actually pursue and put an offer on. Right now, it's not looking good, but the numbers will tell us a bit more. But right now, there's no way they're getting $3.2 million for this. Absolutely not. They're dreaming.
This first building, the first tenancy on the corner here, they'd be paying the highest rate per square meter because they have the best spot, the best location. They definitely have really good street frontage. They've got good signage, and also it looks like Paul's Liquor can be accessed from multiple sides. So you can access it from here, and it looks like you can access it from inside the actual property as well. Right across the road from the post office. Look how old it is. It's so old and shitty. North Richmond Post Office. It's like a little house. It's just a house with lockboxes been cut into the side of it. It's super interesting. It's crazy. And also, I think what they're going to do is they're actually going to want a much higher price because you're next to Aldi. Aldi being right there, they're gonna be jacking up the price for sure. But it's pretty busy. I'm surprised how busy it is on a Sunday afternoon. It's like past 5 o'clock. It's another real estate agent. Ray White. What I have noticed is there's not that many vacancies, which is actually really good. Usually I would have thought there would have been quite a few vacancies that have stood out. but there haven't been, which is really encouraging. But dude, look at this. There's so much retail here. Look, this is all retail. Over there, it's all retail. There's so many options for tenants here. You'd never be able to really push the rates here because there's just too many options, too much supply. Oh, there's one for lease sign over there. Let's go have a look. There's Bendigo Bank. Yeah, there's one for lease sign there. There's Aldi, there's the entrance to Aldi. Yeah, so there's one property for lease here, which it looks like a pretty clean. This is actually not a bad location. You're right in front of Aldi here. Nice parking in front. This is actually a good retail spot if you're going to open, you know, some kind of a retail shop. It's much better than inside the property that we're looking at. Yeah, this is where it's at. This is where you want to be. The hairdresser looks quite nice. It's been fitted out really well. Looks nice and smart. It's a bit of a walkthrough here. They do get some foot traffic on this side. Let's walk around the property. It's pretty clean and tidy. I don't know if there's a Paul's liquor outlet and it's also Super Sellers, or it's a different shop, or maybe it's two shops. They've been joined together. All right, well, I think I've seen enough. It's time to go back home and run the numbers, do some homework on this deal, and see if we can make it make sense. All
right, so right now, this is my cash flow spreadsheet that I created. And one little tip, when I first started doing this over 10 years ago, teaching myself how commercial property and investing works, there weren't any people, you know, giving away free spreadsheets. There weren't like resources and stuff like that. So it forced me to actually go and create and make and develop my own cash flow spreadsheet, which I actually think is a really good unlock to figuring out how the numbers work in with each other. So if you can, don't just rely on downloading someone's cash flow calculator or spreadsheets that they've created. You can use it for to figure out how it would look or how it would work. But if you can get into an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet and put it together yourself, I think that really has big dividends in teaching you how the numbers work, because I would literally figure out how to do it and how to create a spreadsheet, and then it just really ingrained how the numbers, how the ROI works, how the cash flow works, how the cash on cash return works, your cap rate, and how those numbers really work together. So that's a bit of a tip there. Create your own spreadsheets. So the asking price is 3.2 mil. It's not 32 million, although they'd probably want it. They'd probably take it. I can't see the offer price. We'll figure that out later. All right, so we're going to put in their price right now just to see what the numbers come to, and then we can play around with what it actually looks like afterwards. The land size, it is 1174. LVR, we're going to need up to a 70% LVR on commercial property. That's a pretty good LVR. You can get a little bit higher on certain circumstances, but we're definitely going to only assume that we can get a 70% LVR on this. We're going to need to put down 30% deposit. Interest rate on this bad boy, 5 is probably around where we could get it. We're going to be conservative and go a 5.5 just in case. We always, when you're running numbers, you want to make sure you're taking the conservative approach. So all the expenses will be higher and the income that you're going to get is going to be lower. So worst case scenario, if it still makes sense, worst case scenario, then you still got a good deal. Otherwise, if you're taking the best case scenario and one thing goes wrong, you could be screwed. So you should always be very conservative, have higher outgoings, higher interest rate, and a lower income, lower profits, lower all the good stuff. All right, so stamp duty, the way that I work this out, it's a rule of thumb, a broad rule of thumb. About 5% of the purchase price is what the stamp duty would be. With commercial property, that's not exactly, it's calculated a little bit different. So 5% would be a very, very high conservative approach for any state this is in. Each state actually looks at stamp duty differently. So in different states, they calculate it differently. You know, in South Australia, you don't pay stamp duty on commercial property. In Canberra, in ACT, you pay up to like 1.8 million. There's no stamp duty. So different states have concessions for stamp duty, but New South Wales does not. So conservative approach for all states is about 5%. That'll be the highest you'll ever pay. So it'll be 160,000 we're going to be putting in our spreadsheet for this one. And then these are all the acquisition costs that we're going to get. So our building and pest on this property, it's easily going to be about 1,500 for sure. It's not a big property, but there are lots of different areas, the wet areas on the property. So the more wet areas that have to be checked, usually the higher the inspection price. Town planning assessment, probably not going to need a town planning assessment. The bank val is probably going to be about 1,500 to 1,600. 16,000, getting too many zeros. Legal fees, I'd say on this one we probably be about 4,000 or 5,000, so I'll go 5,000 being conservative. Trust establishment, it'd probably cost you $1,200 for establishing a trust and a corporate trustee for this one, so we'll go 1,500 to be, you know, conservative, and then maybe another $1,000 of, you know, something else. We might need to check with the town planner about something, or, you know, creating some leases or something like that during due diligence. Who knows? So the rental income, we can break this up into the different tenants. So we've got 25,080 for tenant 1, 25,080 for tenant 1, 46,200 for tenant 2, 46,200. 23,749, 43,749, and 21,730, 21,730, 17,160, 17,160, and 10,400, 10,400. All right, so you can see once I add in all of the information on this side, on the light blue side, then in the gray, that's when all my stuff starts calculating and working out. So right now we've got a yearly gross of 144,000. I don't know why that's calculated that differently. Have I done the numbers wrong? It's 131. I have a feeling that the agent hasn't updated it or something, because those are the numbers in the actual email, but in the listing they've specifically said 31,000 or 131,200 plus GST. All right, so these are the things that you find out when you're running the numbers, and this is the things that we need to ask the agent next time. Do we have the specific tenants meterage? I don't think we do. When you break down and do it properly, when you have a bit more information, so one of the next questions you'd ask the agent are what are the areas or the actual, you know, meterage for each tenancy. Then what I would do was I'd enter these in and I'd figure out which tenant has the lowest rate per square meter compared to the market, and then I could lift those rate per square meters up, increasing the income of the property, increasing the value. So this is why you want to know the individual tenant area, so we can figure out exactly who has lowest rate per square meter and where we can take it. All right, so next thing, letting fees. There are no letting fees right now, although they are probably going to, it's going to cost money to create the new leases. So we'll put that in as an other, the leases, I guess. All right, so the water, they're saying 3727 water. 3727, and we're just going to use their numbers, and then we're going to add in what else I think is relevant. Council rates 4560. Council rates 4560. Then insurance 4165. Insurance is there 4165. Land tax, there's no land tax for this one at the moment. So these are the general outgoings that you'll be needing to understand. So there's no letting fees right now because it's already fully tenanted. This is in future. So the water rates, electricity. Now the tenants are paying the utilities, each of them. It's for only utilities. You're responsible for utilities. Doesn't say that the Baptist church or the accountant are responsible for utilities. So this is another thing. There's so many. Being a commercial property investor, you almost need to be an investigator. That's basically what you're doing. I'm doing my due diligence on the property right now to understand everything about it, and it brings me to more questions which I need to take to the agent that I can get answered and get clarity on. So is the Baptist church paying any outgoings? Is the accountant paying any outgoings, and what are they? So electricity, no, that's most likely the tenants are paying that. Land tax, no. There's no strata levies because it's all on one line. Fire protection, they haven't spoken about anything like that, but on a property like this, let's see if there's any. There's obviously going to be smoke alarms. I can't see any fire reels or anything like that, but it's still going to need a fire inspection every single year. So that's still a cost that does happen. So I'm going to say it's on this size property about $1,500. Gardening, there is a gardening section here, just there, that we need to account for. And if the good thing about commercial property is that all of these expenses that I'm figuring out right now, if the leases were done correctly, they can be passed on to all the tenants. So ideally, all of these tenants should be on a net lease. They should be on long-term leases, 3 to 5 years, with options to renew. And all of the outgoings, all of the maintenance, the tenants should be paying for that. This is all part of the deal. That's what we would be doing if we were to purchase this property. We're going to hand off all the outgoings and the maintenance to the tenants because that's the way it should be. But the gardening, I'm going to say it's probably going to cost you, $1,000 to $2,000 a year. You might have someone come in and trim them every month, or maybe every 2 months. $250, something like that. Maybe less, but always on the conservative approach. So we'll probably say gardening is going to be about $2,000 a year. Pest control, it's not going to need too much. I don't think you're going to need pest control on this one, really. Maybe like $500, maybe, if they're doing some spraying on the outside for bugs and stuff like that. Council rates we've already got. Bank fees, there will be bank fees. Who knows how much they are? I'm not even going to bother. It's only a small amount. I'm not going to worry about it. Security, doesn't look like there's any security. I was able to walk on site and just mosey on around with a camera and stuff like that. So it's a public area, so there's no security. I didn't see any security cameras. There could be security cameras, but I didn't see any. So I don't think they're spending anything on security. If I was to manage it and I was to operate, I would put security cameras in, but it'd be a one-off cost. With security cameras, you pay for the initial installation, but there's usually no running costs because once you have the software, once you pay for it, it's connected to your phone and you can look at the cameras through your phone. So if you were doing there's no ongoing costs. So these are our ongoing outgoings that we're going to be doing. The security would actually be more of an acquisition cost or a once purchase cost. So we might put this up to $3,000 because I'd probably spend about $2,000 on cameras just to make sure the property was secure at night and things like that, and there weren't any, any kids loitering around and stuff like that. Gas, no lift and elevators or escalators, as I remember it. There was nothing up there. Sure, there's stairs. Nothing like that. Cleaning, the property will need to have some cleaning potentially. Running around here with a blower, maybe a pressure wash of this driveway every now and then. As I said, I think it does look pretty clean. Like the driveway was much better than I thought it would be. The lines look pretty decent, so you might not need too much cleaning on the outside. And I'm assuming that the tenants are responsible. I didn't see the public toilet on the property. If there was a public toilet, then we would need to have a line item for cleaning the toilets. But I didn't see a public toilet, so we won't worry too much about that. Cleaning might be, as part of the gardening, the guy runs around with a blower, as part of that. So the gardening and the cleaning is mainly what we'll need to have that on that line item. Other, we're going to do $1,000 for other just in case there's something that I've forgotten. Repairs and maintenance. So this is a big one. As I said, the benefits of commercial property are that the repairs and maintenance should be worn by the tenant. It doesn't seem like they are, which is a problem. So you probably account for about, on a property of this size with this many tenants, probably about $5,000 to $6,000 a year in maintenance and things like that. That should be, pushed towards the tenant. So I'm going to put $6,000 for any kind of maintenance. All right, so how are we looking here? So right now, we've got a gross yield of 4.5%, which is very, very sharp, as I said. A net yield of 3.5, which is not going to happen. Cash on cash return, we're actually losing money. We're a minus 0.97%, and the net yield total funds invested is 3.33. The gross yield of $12,000 of income monthly, a net yield of 9,476. Okay. So right now, the capital required is we need a deposit for their price, which we're not going to be giving their price, is we need a deposit of $960,000 to transact this property. Total capital required is $1,132,600. And this is the thing about commercial property and why not as many people do it, is because there's a large barrier to entry to be able to transact these deals, to get this cash flow, to be able to play in this space. And usually what people do is they go into residential property first because it's easier to understand. It's also, your money can go further, you can get higher LVRs, and also you can buy a much lower value property that will make sense. And it's a capital growth play. This isn't specifically a capital growth play. This is a cash flow play, with cash flow play first, with a value add growth opportunity later, adding value, forcing value to the property. You're not buying this as a set and forget. If you are going into it, you'd be using cash flow to increase the income. And that's how real professional and commercial investors like myself do it. We don't wait for the market to make us. So there's a few big problems here in this next line of bank financing, that the bank won't fund this deal. There's absolutely no way they would fund this deal right now, because the interest coverage ratio, and this is debt coverage ratio is the American term. Oh, what have I done here? Oh, geez. So the ICR, interest coverage ratio, I used to call it debt coverage ratio because I learned about it from an American investor. But in Australia, we call it the ICR, interest coverage ratio. It's 8/9, which is, it won't work. You need a good 1.5% to 2% interest coverage ratio for it to be able to, a bank to be able to look at this and say, yes, we can fund this deal. So what that means is that the income from the property covers the interest that's required to be paid 1.5 times or 2 times. That gives the bank some security that there's enough income coming through to pay for the mortgage, and that's what it is. Right now, this is not covering itself. It's not washing its own face to be able to pay for everything in this deal, which is a big problem. Well overpriced, this property, for the income it's producing right now. So total outgoings, management fees. We've had management fees up here that I didn't talk about. So a lot of buyers agencies and a lot of people who don't really know what they're doing, or they're trying to sell you something, they won't add in the management fees as part of the deal, which the management fees 100% are an outgoing. Unfortunately, on this property, it's a retail property, so you can't pass the management fees off to the tenants legally under the Retail Leasing Act. You can't pass management fees and things like that to the tenant. So that's something to think about. But we put in 6% of the gross income it's going to cost for management of this property. You could self-manage this, like if you wanted to, if you're that way inclined, or you understand how it does work. Obviously, it's a little bit more work to do that. You need to know what you're doing, but it is possible. So management fees are going to be $8,659. Monthly outgoings, 2,551. Yearly outgoings are 32,000, and that actually still feels light to me. So basically, we need to figure out what would make sense for this deal. So the actual cash flow that we're receiving right now, and this is the kicker. This is the funny thing. This property is right now, with the way that it works, it's not cash flow positive. This is a negative geared property, this is not why we invest in commercial property. You're investing for cash flow first, to get cash flow. So the property needs to pay for itself. That's the number one priority. So with this purchase price, with these outgoings right now, and there might be a bit of wiggle room here, because in the agent did say that, you know, this tenant is paying 1/7 of all outgoings. You know, so let's see. I'm going to add that back. Well, we can probably figure that out. So we'll go, 32,100 divided by 7. So on this line, I've got add back recoverables. So that tenant's paying 4,578.87. So that takes off the yearly outgoings to 27,000. So that's good, but we're still negatively geared by $409 per month. So this property is still going to cost me $409 per month to own and to operate the way that I would be operating it. And what was the okay, and so I don't know. It's weird how they've done 14% of all outgoings, and then this is 1/7. This makes it very difficult. All right, so let's figure out 14% of all outgoings now. So I'm assuming that's of the original figure. So we've got to get this figure off again, so I can go that figure. And then I'm going to go 14.28 over 100 times 32,111 equals, it's the same again, basically 4,585. So 14% is basically 1/7, I think. So we've got, they're paying 4,585.45, and then 1/7 of it was 32,111 divided by 7. Yeah, so it's almost the same, 4,587.2. So if we add both of those figures together, 4,585.45 equals 9,172.73. So those tenants are contributing. No one else is, unbelievably. So that reduces our monthly or a yearly outgoings to 22,938, which is all this. We shouldn't be paying any of this, and we're still negative $27 a month. So it's a lot more, easy to tolerate that, to handle that. But still, like, it's not even washing its own face. So, and at the cap rate, the asking price, it's 3.79 cap. So this is absolutely ridiculous. Let's go up to the cap rate calculator here, and I can figure out exactly what our offer should be. So this is just a separate little cell. I think, like, I'd be happy at this. Like, realistically, I want to be around getting a 6.5% cap rate for this particular deal. I know it's in Sydney, but it's North Richmond. There's a lot of retail around. It's pretty far out. It was a busy area, but realistically, for me to feel comfortable to place, multi-million dollars of capital there, I need to be getting about a 6.5% return for retail. This is for retail, and that's specific retail too. It's not the best retail in the area. It's got one good or two good shops that have a very good street frontage, that have very good signage. It's right next to Aldi. But the other ones don't have anywhere near as much foot traffic. If you don't know that laundromat's there, you don't know it's there. You'll never find it. That op shop, there's no way people are finding that op shop and going into it if they don't know it's already there, or they haven't lived in the area for a gazillion years, or they don't go to the Baptist church. Like, there's no way they're getting walk-in traffic or barely anything, because it's just so tucked away. So 3.5%. And let's see what the net income is today. So the net is 121,381. 121,381. So my offer, if I was to offer something at the price that would make sense for me, would be 1,867,400. I'm pretty sure they're not going to take that. This is the highest price that I'd be willing to pay, so it's not really a lowball offer for me. But they're going to look at this and it's probably going to insult them, for one. But I guess if you take it to the agent and say, hey, look, these are the numbers that I've come to. This is what I was thinking. Because of this, and this, the tenants need to have better leases. A lot of them are going out of lease. They're month to month, not paying outgoings. I've got a lot of work to do here. This is the return, and that's what I'd be willing to pay. So we can plug that number into here. So my offer price equals DUS, and that's what my offer price would be. And so let's change the purchase price, and we might be able to... All right, so if we did get it at my offer price, say they, needed to get this sold, or it was a deceased estate or something like that, like it's been listed for 120 days. So it's a bit of a stale listing. The agent didn't get back to me for a long time. I'm sure they've got a couple of other properties they're trying to sell as well. So if we got it for the deal, or what I was looking for, so the interest coverage ratio, the ICR, is 1.2 over 3, and so that's not too bad. The bank would most likely be able to handle that. The net yield is obviously 6.5%, because that's where I would like it. Cash on cash return is 7.43. That's not too bad to start out with. I'd like to see that well over 10. Ideally, if you want it to be getting like a 20% return, or cash on cash return would be awesome if you were doing some big value add, which would be nice. But 7.4% is now okay. Now over 10% would be great. And the total net yield on funds invested is 6.15, which is reasonably healthy. Now, from my offer, we'd be netting $10,240 per month, and a lot of that will still go to the mortgage, because your net income, the way that it works is you get your gross income, take out the outgoings, get you to your net figure, and then you still have to pay for your debt servicing, so your mortgage, and things like that, which gets you to a cash flow figure up here. So our monthly cash flow after all outgoings and the mortgage is paid would be $4,249 per month, a total of $49,486 per year, with a cash flow percentage of 2.65, that's pretty normal. So that's how the numbers work out to me. That's how I would make it a good deal.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you guys do want to get access to the cash flow spreadsheet that I used in this video. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.